Welcome into Sports Tonight, your Tuesday edition. I am Sports Director Bailey Burmaster, and we have a fun little show going for you today. We're going to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs and what's the latest with them. We're also going to discuss a little bit about the Falcons as they gear up for week 3 it is rather, in their second preseason game against the Ravens. But let's start with Georgia. They only have one final practice before fall camp wraps up. Classes actually begin tomorrow for UGA. Georgia head coach Kirby Smart provided an update on the health of the team. They've had a few scrimmages, something he is not satisfied with. I'm kind of shocked to hear that maybe satisfaction or satisfied is in his vocabulary. But Kirby did speak to the media today, so let's tune in to hear what he had to say about the health of the team, their scrimmages, and what week 1 might look like when they take on Clemson in the Aflac Kickoff Bowl at Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Unfortunately, our academic calendar doesn't match up perfectly with what we got going on. So school will start for the players tomorrow. They're getting their books. They're back to being student athletes, and it's hard to do that in camp early on. So we get them for a lot more time up until tomorrow, and makes it a little bit tighter schedule for us. But progress has been good. Wouldn't say that the first scrimmage was really up to the standard or our expectations. We did not have a lot of enthusiasm, didn't play to the level that I think we need to play to. But good news is I got another chance this Saturday and really every day to go out and practice. I have been pleased with all the details that go into the leadership in terms of showing a younger player how to do it. Guys are coaching guys. Guys are on time. We must have 6,000 checks and balances in the last 2 weeks of what time you got to be somewhere, and the guys have been great about that, which says a lot about them as people. But we got a long way to go as a football team. We are nowhere near where we close to where we need to be. I feel like we have less depth than we've ever had, and that's kind of a common theme talking to other coaches I talk to. I call it the deterioration of football, because every year we've been here, I feel like we've had more players capable of going in and play winning football, and every year that goes down. So we've got to keep working to increase that number.
Yeah, Coach, I'm just curious, are injuries a byproduct of football at this time of the year when you're getting your football team prepared for the season? Or is there anything that you can do to maybe limit the exposure to that as a football coach while still remaining physical in practice?
Yeah, it's the unanswerable question. I mean, how do you play football and practice football without getting injured? The guy that figures that out is going to be worth a lot of money, because you can't do that. You have to be smart. You have to be calculated. You have to know your positions. But, I mean, injuries are part of football year-round. It's not like this time of year. We don't really do anything different this time of year than we do in spring. We don't do anything really different this time of year than we do in November and December. Injuries are part of football, so we've been lucky so far. We haven't had significant injuries, but we have a lot of guys that are soft tissue, beat up, banged up, and we're trying to get them back.
Going off the injuries, what is Jared and Chaz, each of them, dealing with, and just what they look like at this point in the week?
Jared's doing well. He's been dealing with Achilles tendonitis. He's been great. He's worked on the side. He's been able to push, but it was able to do some things yesterday, and continues to ramp up his exposure and ramp up his reps. So he's doing well. Chaz is dealing with the soft tissue hamstring he's dealt with before, but he's been able to do some things too. He did more yesterday, and he'll do a little more today, but both dealing with some nagging injuries.
Yeah, with the lack of depth, how much of that is because of the transfer portal and guys are just leaving the program more? And two, how much easier is it for a freshman now to find themselves in a position to help you guys from a depth standpoint, because there is just less of it at the upper levels?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's transfer portal or the deterioration of football. Could be less people playing. High schools not having as much of an opportunity to develop kids because their practice regimen and practice schedule is tougher. It's a trickle up effect. So we get the guys coming from the high school level. But do we have the same number of players, so you can't blame the transfer portal for that. I think we lose some continuity in terms of guys that have been in the program multiple years. Therefore, your next statement of making it easier for a younger player to play, I don't know that it's any easier because he's up against guys that come out of the portal, but we have less guys that know and execute our system, and we're not even really considered a portal team. I mean, I don't know how many we've averaged over the last 4 years. I can't imagine it's even double digits. I mean, we don't have many guys coming from that. So, but it's not as much quality depth that I'm used to, but we probably have more than a lot of people.
Kirby, can you provide an update on Jordan Hall, what he's dealing with? Did he have a setback of some sort?
Yeah, Jordan Hall was coming back, starting to run from his, what was the exact word there? He had a stress fracture in his tibia, and he is now dealing with the exact same thing on the other leg. So the other leg had the same thing that was strange for it to occur, but he didn't acknowledge it until he started running, and he was coming back from the first one. So we had to fix the other one, but he's on a good timeline. It's not a long-term deal, and now he actually knows what to expect because he's had it done to the left and the right. So I don't know the order of those, but it doesn't matter. He had the other one fixed. He's going to be back, and we don't know the exact timeline for that, but he's been in great spirits, and I'm just glad they found it when they did.
Kirby, you've spoken at length about the importance of explosive play margin. I'm curious, through your first several practices, what have you seen from both sides as far as being able to create explosives and prevent them?
I've seen both sides of it. I mean, it's one day it's one way, and the other day it's the other way. There's not been a dominant side of the ball, if that's what you're asking. There's been explosives, and then there's not been explosives. And a little bit of that's predicated off of eye control, execution, depth, who's in practice, who's out of practice. But at the end of the day, both units have had glaring moments of like success and moments of not success. I mean, there was a consecutive 4-play stretch by the offense where they had 4 explosives in a row Saturday, but then there were stretches where they didn't. So, I mean, it's like every year. I can't sit here and tell you that one side of the ball has been explosive and the other side has given them all up. It's a balance.
Speaking of explosives, I think over the last few years you all have had more explosive runs than previous years, despite running the ball a little less. Is it kind of an example of not only opening up the offense, but when you still retain a physical style, it allows you to do multiple things, not just pass?
Yeah, I would have thought before you said that we had less explosives running than we have in the past, but maybe that's just when you start getting to the big numbers. We do have a lot of 10 to 12-yard runs, but we didn't have the home runs, the long runs that historically we've had, which are like another category of explosive, more explosive. But it's something that we pride ourselves on, and to be honest with you, you're not going to be an explosive passing team because explosive passes happen off play action. And you can't be an explosive passing team off play action if you can't run the ball. So the balance of those two is really critical. We've been more explosive passing the ball in the last 2 years than previous years. A lot of that has to do with the skill players, has to do with the quarterback, has to do with how the coordinator calls the game. But we certainly need to be explosive in both. I think we've got the backs to be an explosive run team. We've got the perimeter blockers to be an explosive run team, and we've got the offensive line to be an explosive run team. And I hope that we're more capable of longer explosives, meaning when we get through there to 10 to 12, we can turn those into 40, 50 and not 20, 30-yard plays.
Yeah, Coach, I know you're still in fall camp, but when you start that prep for Clemson, do you think there's going to be a level of familiarity with that roster, considering there's been a lot of recruiting battles, or at least a lot of players that you've attempted to recruit on that roster that you might be well aware of?
Yeah, I'd reserve that to when we start worrying about them. We got a lot to fix, guys. We are not where we need to be in terms of like depth and enough guys to play winning football. And I'm really so focused on like how we can get better today and how our team can get better, and that that's down the road.
Yeah, what have you seen out of freshman running back Nate Frazier, and what sort of makes him different from the other guys that you have in that room?
Well, I don't know that we know that yet. He's certainly a guy that's trying hard to learn, to understand. I don't think he's ever had the detail of, on this run, this is your key. He gets the ball and runs, and there's a lot to our blocking schemes in terms of who is he reading, who is he looking at, what are his steps, what does he have to do in protection. He's got a lot to learn in terms of that. He didn't go through spring, so his spring is now. His spring was in the summer, so he's got a lot of catching up to do. He is an explosive kid. He's got good track times. He's got good speed. He's got great toughness. He's got a little ball of energy. But there's a bunch of guys in that room they're doing a great job. Chauncey's doing a great job. The young kids, White's doing a good job. I mean, those guys are all doing a great job, and we need them to help us this year.
Kirby, can you give us a couple updates on the running backs? Will Trevor Etienne be available for the Clemson game? And what is the health of Rod Robinson and Branson Robinson? How are they holding up?
Yeah, that room has been really good in camp. They've worked really hard. Cash is a guy that people just don't give enough credit to, and he's a really good back. He's great picking things up. I feel like Trevor's the leader of the room and understands things and does a really good job of setting the tempo and setting the standard. Branson's been great. Rod's been dealing with a little bit of a toe injury that he's dealing with, and then the three freshmen. So we're looking forward to getting all those guys ready to go.
Kirby, two things. One, you were pretty open challenging Carson to become more assertive. Where is he at on that? And then two, you mentioned that his ability to be effective has a lot to do with the players around him and what they can pick up. And what have you seen in terms of progress there?
Yeah, I think I talked about it a little bit. Like the ones can go out there and execute, get calls, line up. I mean, might not do it just right, but there's not a lot of eras. There's a good nucleus of 11 guys who've played a lot of football when you count Arian, Dylan, Oscar, Dom, and those guys. But there's not the depth around Carson at the skill positions that there's been in the past. And it puts more pressure on him to probably feel like he's got to be perfect, to feel like he's got to make the right decision, the protection check, do this, and can I count on that guy that hadn't done it yet to do the right thing and trust that he's going to do it even though he may be a freshman? Those are things that Carson's he's got to get familiar with those other guys. And that's the hardest part in the depth is, we count on our quarterback to put us in the right play or make the right decision on so many plays, and Carson does a great job of that. I think he's had a very detailed, attentive camp. Assertive is not something that he is. He's just not naturally going to go out there and just be assertive vocally. He's assertive in his checks, and he's assertive in his decision making. That's certainly much more important than just what he says to the group as a whole.
What stood out to you about the defensive backs in that first scrimmage, and just where do you feel like that group as a whole is at this point in camp?
Got a long way to go. We don't have a lot of proven playmakers. They have to prove it by how they play. They've got to have better eye control. We got to tackle much better. We did not tackle very well. We didn't run to the ball and punch the ball out at the level we need to. I got a lot of confidence in the players in the secondary. They have to go do it live action, scrimmage this Saturday, practices every day to get where we're going to be really comfortable with them.
Coach, realizing you're in the midst of camp right now, it seems like there's a lot of traction about the all-scholarship model coming on pretty fast. And I'm just wondering, you guys are always in the throes of recruiting. How are you managing that when it comes to looking at your 2025 roster? Are you recruiting more guys in anticipation of that, or how are you kind of handling it behind the scenes?
Not really doing anything with it. I mean, we're focused on our team, our roster. We'll have to make some decisions. We have a timeline set apart for like the off weeks, different times in the season when we sit down and look at our roster currently, our roster next year, how that looks in terms of what do we have committed, what do we need, what are our numbers going to be. I think you're referring to the 85 versus the potentially 105, and there's a lot of gray area in that because you don't have to go to 105. A lot of people may choose to. I don't know that 105 scholarship players is the right way to go about it, because you've got 105 NIL capabilities there. You've got more people that would be unhappy. You don't have walk-ons when you do that. And, I don't think it's set in stone yet that everybody's going to rush off and go to 105. That's a huge burden on the budget of the athletic department. And honestly, there's a lot of kids here that, I think do a great job for us as walk-ons, and you would be dismissing them to go out and say you're going to sign 20 more high school kids. So we really haven't gone down the path of the numbers yet.
When you talk about the depth of your team, can you identify one or two areas in particular that are most concerning at this stage?
Yes.
Can you identify it with us?
No.
Coach, just wondering, for the helmet the radio in the helmet, how has that kind of been going in practice and scrimmage last weekend?
It's great. Do it every day. We do it every opportunity we get. We use it. We use it in scrimmages, and we communicate with the guys. And I think logistically it may be an issue when all the people in the stands, the crowd noise. I'm really interested to see how this is going to work for guys. Can they hear it in an SEC stadium? Because you see a lot of NFL players covering their ears, and they're like trying to really hear it. And a lot of times our stadiums, especially at the national level in the SEC, can be hard. And so there's no rule for that. There's no you got to tell them to be quiet so we can hear. So that you got to have a plan for how you're going to execute it.
Kirby, what have you seen from Raylan and CJ as they go into that second season, especially with Smile banged up coming into camp?
More comfortable. They've been thrust into the limelight, had to play earlier, probably before they were ready, to be honest. And you grow up when you have to do that. The amount of time, I think you forget sometimes what year they are. It happens to me all the time. I think Raylan and CJ are experienced vets on our team because they're in the upper echelon of playtime and upper echelon in terms of years here, because the majority of our team is young. Even our mid-years, I'm out at practice, and I'm thinking man, this kid's already been here a year. No, he hadn't. He's only been here 5-6 months. And you got to grow up fast with the way this thing is now, because young players have to be ready to play.
Yeah, what has Damon Wilson been able to do, especially after noticeably bulking up this offseason?
Damon's been good. He's been able to be a contributing factor more on first and second down. I think learning his assignment, he could go play on third down and play with reckless abandon and do a really good job last year. Now, first and second down, he knows what to do. He understands it. He has better keys. He has better strike. He can hold up against a really physical tackle. He's improved just by merely being here and going through the spring. He's improved. He's also gotten a good bit of work with Chaz and some of the injuries we've had there.
Kirby, can you talk about three of the offensive linemen, specifically Jamal Merriweather, Daniel Calhoun, and Jazir Jackson?
Yeah, all three of those guys, Jamal Merriweather, Jazir Jackson, and who's the other one?
Daniel Calhoun.
Yeah, they all have gone with the 2s and 3s. Daniel's probably gone a little more at the 2s with Jared's injury and moving guys around, where the other guys have gone with the 2s some and 3s. They continue to get better. They need to. They're still considered young offensive linemen in our program, and that's the hardest place to play besides quarterback in the SEC. There's nowhere you will get exposed more than on the offensive line. So those guys are going to continue to get better and develop. They all three have size on their side.
Time for one more question.
Kirby, I want to ask about Jamal Jarrett, kind of his journey here at Georgia and coming in and losing a lot of weight. And how has he done with all of that stuff, and what kind of camp is he having?
John's been good. His weight has been up and down. I think it's something that he knows and he's trying to work on. And he has moments, flashes of being able to help us. And we need help at that position in terms of depth, because we've got injuries at those positions. So I think he's getting better. He's more dependable. He has a little more stamina. But there's still area for improvement, that he's got to be able to play more consecutive snaps. And that's what we challenge him to do each and every day.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, so we'll keep you updated on all things Georgia. School season's officially here. The football season will be here before you know it. that big one on August 31st against Clemson at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. That will definitely be one to pay attention to. Switching gears to the NFL, the Falcons continuing training camp, week 3 of training camp. Things keep going. They will face the Ravens in Baltimore on Saturday at noon. Should be another test for them to get some reps. Hopefully they can get out of there unscathed in the injury department. It's been quite an interesting trek between Braylon Trice, Rondell Moore. There's a lot of people who keep dealing with these injuries. You have Helms, who is also out for an extended time with an ankle injury. So something to just pay attention to. Raheem has been very vocal about the fact that he does not like preseason. He doesn't want to play these games, but you kind of have to. Offensive coordinator Zach Robinson has already said that you will not see a lot in the preseason. So they're probably going to keep a lot of the starters out as they did in the first game, probably throughout the whole preseason, and hopefully get out of there without any injuries. But Jerry Gray, assistant to the head coach of the defense, spoke to media earlier this week about a plethora of options and things concerning where Helms is in the secondary. I talked about Kevin King and his interesting return. So let's tune into what Jerry Gray had to say.
What's it been like working with Kevin King specifically after 2 years off? He had a great game.
Yeah, the good thing is we know who Kevin is, and we know what he can do. He understands, very smart, get a chance to get back out there, like you said, after 2 years. And he just picked up where I had him in Green Bay. He knows what he can do. We know what he can do. And he went out there, had a couple of, interception, had a forced fumble, a couple of tackles. So that's what we asked him to do.
What is it about him that you liked so much in Green Bay that you wanted to bring him here, if you had any say in those conversations, of course?
Well, versatile. He could play corner, he could play nickel, he can play dime. We got money, and then if he need to play safety, he can play safety. So that's the good thing about him, that he's very smart, understanding what he can do and what he can't do. And as long as we use him the right way, he's on our team. I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised.
Coach, I think it was 19, but he had one of his better years up there. How far is he from that, and could he get back to first-string starter level play in the NFL?
Well, to me, I think he can. It's going to take some time. Number one, it takes trust from coaches that he's been out for 2 years. So do we trust him enough to get out on the football field? Okay, Miami, yep, we've seen that. Now, can you put it together again against Baltimore? Can you do it against Jacksonville? And then all of a sudden, you know what? Then you let the chips fall where they may. And I think if he's on this team, you'll see a guy that can make some plays. Kevin, he has great ball skills. He knows what he can do. And then, like I said, I like him because I know what he can do. So now you just got to prove to everybody else.
We don't want to overhype after a great performance against the backup, but can he make it all the way back?
Well, we'll see. To me, like you said, he played against backups, and right now we consider him as a backup. So if we were consider him as a starter, then playing a backup, that's not fair. So now, he's one of our fourth, fifth, sixth corners. Now, you know what? Can you keep working to get to where you're supposed to be able to be on this roster?
What did that interception mean to you? We spoke to him after the game about how much it meant to him, given everything. But what about you, knowing him before and now?
Oh, it meant a lot because now, when the ball is in the air, we know he can go get it, and it shows that, hey, if I'm around the football, I can catch the football. Now what else can you do? We watched him go against guys in practice. He did a really good job there. Biggest thing we got to do is just make sure he stays healthy, and can you keep competing week in and week out?
DeMarco hasn't been placed on injured/reserve list or anything like that yet, but what does that immediate loss do to the secondary?
Well, right now, the biggest thing we got to do is we got to see who's going to be that next guy. We always talk about next man up, who's stepping up, and that's what we're looking for. Who's going to step up and be that next guy until we get DeMarco back? And I think that's the attitude we had last year. That's the attitude we got to keep building because you never know. This league is so physical. You're going to lose some guys along the way. Can the young guys that are after him step up and make plays? If they can, you're only going to make us better. If you can't, you're going to make us worse. So it's up to a lot of guys that are playing backup that really gives you the strength of what you're really going to be.
Is there anyone you're excited about to see make that step up?
Well, I think Micah did a great job. When you looked at him, I think you look at We had a couple other guys out there hitting guys, stuff like that. So we're anxious just to see, okay, if DeMarco's not going to play this week, who's going to be the next guy? Okay, who's going to be out there? What if Jesse's not in? Who's going to be the next guy? So we're always looking for that next safety that's going to help us. Can you be a really, really good guy on special teams? Not take a lot of reps, but if your number calls, can you go out there and make those plays?
What's the difference in him going back from what you saw with him when you guys were at the Packers to maybe now where he is? I know his role's different here a little bit, but what do you see?
Well, you know, the only thing that I see from Kevin is just getting himself back into shape to play. You know, when you see ball in the air, he still has all that. When you see him in the meeting room, very, very smart, understands what goes on with concepts. So we know that. It's just that can you get yourself in shape to play and then play for a long time? And that's kind of what we're looking for.
What's your trust in him? Because you have to have a lot of trust in a player to be able to bring him back and hopefully get him there.
Well, because the good thing is I know him and I was in the room with him for a couple of years. I trust him. You know, I trust him wholeheartedly. Hey, look, I know what you can do. Now go out there and do it. And trust me, I don't have any problem with him going out on the football field. That's the least of my worries.
It was really good. Just, you know, it was surreal at the end of the moment, you know, just knowing that I'm playing my first NFL game, preseason or not, it's a game to me. So, you know, just going out there and just doing what I was coached to do and just play ball.
Are there things you learned from that game, or like you go back and watch the reps on film, or is it kind of just let's get through this thing?
Definitely. It's a lot I learned from pregame, learning my routine, because, you know, it's my first time going through the game routine here, so learning what routine works best for me. And during the game, just watching tape and going back to square one, knowing what I need to do better, working on my hands, my get off, little things like that, things that are very fixable that I can sharpen up.
Rube, what would you say is the biggest adjustment from college to pro?
I would just say the speed of the game. It's just all faster right now. But, you know, with time, it's going to slow down. Same thing as coming in as a freshman in college. It was very fast to you. But as time goes and as you progress and practice more on your craft, it slows down. So that's what I'll say the biggest difference is right now.
Have you gotten any usage out of the video boards that y'all have here, like on the side that show the replays?
I ain't gonna lie, at first I didn't know what that was. I thought this was like past practices, but I didn't know that was the play that literally just happened.
Yeah.
So I low-key just started looking at it. I'm not even gonna lie.
Does it help in any
It
way?
does help. It definitely does help because you can get a quick peek at what you did and you know quickly see like, okay, I did this here and I can do this better, and it's just quick like that and you just go about your day.
Was there a certain play that worked on? Like you looked up and you said, okay, I got to do this different. And
Yeah, I'd probably say like just a pass rush move I threw or something. Like if I felt like I could have got through there, I'll go look at it real quick and then see like, all right, if I would have cleaned it up this way, then I would have got through there, things like that.
What's the mindset as you prepare for Baltimore later this week?
Mindset is the same thing as it is every week for me. It's just get better. Just do better than whatever I did the last week and just get better and learn from the mistakes that I made and try not to make them again.
What were some of those takeaways or mistakes, lessons learned that you took from Miami?
Just playing faster, you know, just trusting my coaching, trusting my preparation and everything, and just going out there and playing free.
Is there anything you'd like to do, you know, to kind of break up the monotony of camp, you know, going into these next few weeks as far as like not staying stagnant, keeping things fresh?
I'll be watching boxing a lot. So like when I get home,
So some things to pay attention to as we get into our Wednesday. The Atlanta Dream back at practice as they kick off the second half of their season. Also, the Falcons are back at the practice field. We'll also be getting a little inside look at the new digs they got going on, a new locker room. They redid the weight room, so we'll get an inside look at that. Then we can't talk about football without talking about Corky Kell. That officially kicks off tomorrow. 2 games at Kell High School. We will have all the latest on Atlanta news first. You're going to want to make sure to join us for those football highlights. It was also mentioned, of course, Score Atlanta will have their own show throughout the week on Peachtree Sports Network. You can get all your high school sports news there. That will stream from 12 to 1, and it will be on Peachtree Sports Network as well. So you'll definitely want to tune in for that. But that is it for this edition of Sports Tonight. Thank you guys for joining us. Make sure to join us throughout the rest of the week for all your latest news. You won't want to miss it. Have a good night.